Hi, this is Dax with Elemental Risk Management, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about what happens in the event that you have one of your commercial buildings incur a fire damage. This is something that's fresh on my mind because we currently have a client that had a large fire at their processing facility. It was a metal building, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard in my career that metal buildings don't burn down. I can assure you, and maybe we can include some photos as part of this video, but that metal buildings do burn. They don't always fall to the ground, but as you can imagine, the heat is so intense. There's smoke damage, and the structural integrity of the structure is compromised. Oftentimes, there's part of the structure that can be salvaged, possibly. Building fires, especially depending on what kind of combustible materials, what kind of fire rates that you have with the contents of the building, can definitely influence how a fire is going to impact the building structure itself. But what happens in a building fire? Obviously, the first thing to do, and I'm not saying this jokingly, is call the fire department, get out there, mitigate the fire damage as quickly as possible. That being said, oftentimes in building fires, it's not always the fire that does the most damage, but whatever isn't damaged by the fire department will do the rest of the damage for you with water damage, especially on brick buildings, block buildings, where water can penetrate into the block and brick and mortar and cause damage there. Even if it looks good, it'll have to be replaced. Of course, with metal buildings, water damage directly to the building typically isn't as big of an issue. But that being said, building fires have an incredibly high indirect cost because everything stops in your business, and you now have to mitigate the situation as best as possible, clean everything up. Debris removal, often a part of building coverage, insurance coverage, that's often not considered, is the cost to remove the debris. And then you start the designing and building process, which can take, in today's current environment with the backup in construction, can take months and years, if not expedited quickly. So first thing that happens is an adjuster is going to come in and take a look at everything. Cause and origin specialist will come in and try and determine where the fire started and potentially how it was started. Obviously, of course, insurance companies are always looking for self-induced arson or arson of any kind for that matter, but it's something to be aware of. And then the process starts on your end of going out, getting bids to rebuild the building, getting costs to replace your equipment, and getting that approved and working with your adjuster to get those approvals done, establishing coverage limits so you kind of know what you're dealing with. And then of course, business income, which is typically a month-to-month thing or quarterly situation, depending on when you're providing your loss of income for lost revenue during that period of time to your insurance adjuster for payment. So there's a lot of different moving parts. The other thing to consider is outdoor property. It's not necessarily a part of the building, but covered in a building policy. Trees and shrubs, not often very considered, but trees do have a cost to them. We had a situation where the railroad tracks that came in on site to this particular property were damaged by the fire. The fire was so hot, it actually buckled the asphalt around the rail tracks and damaged the rail tracks. And something to consider too in terms of payment, typically the way claims are paid is the insurance company is going to determine the value, and then they're going to pay you up front. There's some advances along the way where they'll give you an upfront advance. It can typically be a pretty sizable amount, and then they're going to pay you on the actual cost valuation of the building. So what is actual cost value is the value of that building with depreciation. And that's what they're going to pay you up front on. And then you go rebuild the building and they're going to pay you the difference, which hopefully you set a high enough limit on your building limit on your insurance policy to cover the full replacement. If not, then you're going to be out of pocket some money plus your deductible, of course. So these are all different considerations. So yeah, they'll pay the full amount once you actually rebuild, because it's a kind of a you need to spend it to earn it type situation when you have a building fire. So these are all really important things. Definitely if you own buildings, if your business owns buildings, really important to give consideration to your building value when establishing the limit on your policy with your agent, and make sure you have a high enough limit to cover current replacement costs of your building. And right now we've seen those replacement costs as much as double. So anyway, hope that's helpful. There's a lot more to it. I'm always happy to help talk one-on-one, answer more questions, get into more nitty-gritty details. Hope that helps.